All right. Hey, and welcome everybody. This is Plutus PBL Live Coding at Gimbal Labs. It's the 15th of February, 2023. Got two agenda items today. We're going to talk a little bit about the role of Plutus puzzles and mastery grading and what we can do in the upcoming PPBL 2023 course. And then we're going to look a little bit at NICs and property-based testing. Alex has been doing some groundbreaking work, making all of that accessible to the rest of us. But Sean, you were here a couple of weeks ago talking about the concept of Plutus puzzles, and it really resonated with me and I think some other folks. And I'm excited to push the idea forward. And I'm wondering what's the best way to do this. I've done a little bit of work on a front end that just gets us to start thinking about mastery. And I know you've got some concepts of Plutus puzzles that you've been thinking about. I could imagine starting from either angle, right? Starting from the Plutus concepts and then working our way towards the front end, or starting from the concept of mastery and then thinking about where Plutus puzzles would fit. Anybody have an opinion on what's the best approach there?
Should I start off with some thoughts I've been having about this?
Yeah, let's start there. And then we'll see
All
what
right,
user experience we can define. Great.
awesome. So far, what I think Plutus puzzles would be most suited to do is having these Plutus validators or front ends which are slightly broken, and then the student has to go in, look at the code, and know what it is supposed to do versus what it's actually doing, and then go ahead and fix it. So in that sense, I feel like from a front end angle, I can't really comment much because I need to learn just as much as anyone else. So but from a Plutus angle, what I can say is for example, the example that Alex proposed, which was like a continuation in some ways of the rock, paper, scissors example, which was like ace, king, queen, where basically now there's this randomness element where which card you get needs to be random. So for that, maybe a student needs to go dive into the haddock for the particular checkout that we're using of the Plutus apps and see which function would be most well suited to deliver true randomness as to for which card someone is getting or something like that. So I think getting in the process of getting them familiar with messing around with Plutus validators, maybe we should also kind of direct them towards building and serving documents locally, working with them, and so on. So those are some of the initial thoughts I had.
That's really good. Okay, so there's a few things you just said that I think are really important. I think serving the docs is a really good thing to add to the course, because it's a good outcome in itself, but also because you're going to learn some things about how Haskell and everything works by doing that. But one thing that really felt like an aha moment for me is this concept of adding another package to a Plutus project. If we provide, okay, we're going to use this checkout of Plutus apps, that's fine. And here's a template that works with that. That's okay too. But that moment where somebody realizes that they have all of Haskell in front of them and can therefore grab, additional packages. And just here's the couple spots you have to go to make that happen in your project. That's just a really critical pattern for people to see. And it helps you understand. I mean, Alex can speak to this. I understood better what Nix was doing for me when I just had to add some external stuff and I was able to just plug in these functions and say, oh, look, that works. That's good. Okay, and so on the front end topic, right, we also, in terms of the student user experience, we don't have to rush in to having something happening like in a front end. I think that's interesting for there to eventually be applications there. But certainly Plutus puzzles, the way I'm understanding it, can happen just as much from the CLI as from any other venue. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, when I came up with it, I was just thinking this on-chain library of puzzles which
Yeah.
anyone with a node can interact with using CLI, as you said.
Yeah. Now, here, let me hand to Alex. I have some then kind of philosophical questions about how we organize this, but I want to hand off to Alex for a moment. Hey.
Thank you. Sean, the thing is, if I understand what you want to do with Plutus puzzles is to implement smart contracts which don't function as intended, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the documents would say one thing, but it's doing something slightly wrong, and then someone has to come in and fix it, essentially.
It's an awesome idea because that's what I was thinking about in like for a while now, and I couldn't do this, and we should try to do this together because this is a perfect opportunity to jump a little bit forward and talk about testing and the goal of this. And if we can, you and me can formulate an approach to programmatically explain to other person how to find that the smart contract is not to specification, we could say that we performed a basic audit of a smart contract, which is a very important, I think, thing in Cardano overall. So we should kind of, I think, develop this idea.
Yeah, I completely agree, because often when you go ahead and try to build something, you have the objective you're trying to achieve in mind, and often either subconsciously or consciously you only test it in exactly the way you were imagining it, and there are actually many edge cases where it doesn't work as you expect at all. So like in the rock paper scissors example, like someone, if they see a paper sitting on chain, then instinctively they're going to play scissors, and that's going to work. But if they ever try to play rock, even though it should lose, it actually works. So like they should know that like you should test each of these edge cases. Yeah.
That's a really, really good frame. Okay, so one way to conceive of Plutus puzzles, this is contract auditor training. Right? This is very cool. I like the term slightly broken. And I think I guess my instinct would be first to introduce the concept. Okay, I agree completely with the way you said that, Sean, that like, right, the first time you build a contract, you're likely to be looking to make sure that your desired behavior works. And what that leaves out are these edge cases. But we need to start by hitting people over the head pretty hard with the idea. We don't want it to be too subtle that they can't really tell what's going on. What I'm wondering is, if the point we want to get to is giving people an experience of auditing for those edge cases, is it reasonable to start by giving them Plutus code that doesn't even compile yet, right? Like start by, hey, here's something, puzzle number one, just get this thing to compile, right? Puzzle number two, build something where you can actually, and 1, 2, don't worry about the numbers, like n, this later number. But we are building towards even being able to build a valid transaction in the first place, so that we can eventually get to this point of this kind of finer tuning. Okay.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Like in some cases, I don't know, like it's maybe unreasonable to expect someone to go in and see what a 0.2% probability thing there is in the contract that might not work. So like in those kind of puzzles, I think it should definitely be, as you said, like really blatantly clear, like, oh, this does not work. And yeah, there are many ways of communicating it, but yeah, even just not having it compile is totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah. It has to be, yeah. So these really obvious examples first, that's really good. Okay. And then moving towards those less and less likely edge cases. But right, the less likely an edge case, the more likely it is to be a disaster if it's exploited. So that's what we really want people to see.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So when it comes to mastery, there's really easy ways to look at on-chain activity for certain kinds of tasks, right? So for example, if we give the learning target that we want somebody to be able to mint a token, then we just have to look at a UTXO that minted a token, right? And we know if that happened or not. But in some cases, we want proof that it's impossible to do something, right? So let's talk about this more advanced Plutus puzzle that we're going to eventually get people into, that has that low probability edge case in it, and we got to fix that. Basically, the assignment is, hey, look, here's a contract that has a vulnerability in it, and here's a working transaction that shouldn't be able to work, that exploits that edge case. And basically the assignment is to make that transaction now impossible. And basically what this means is that if somebody successfully completes the puzzle, it's impossible to make an on-chain record, right? Because now we've closed off that edge case. So how, first of all, I hope what I'm saying makes sense. And if it does, does that make anybody think of any innovative ways that we can get some proof of mastery if the goal was to make a transaction impossible? Yuli, what do you think?
Normally, when you look at those tools like Code Wars also, they are normally delivering a test for something. And you have to write code so that the test is okay. So when you can assert for failing, as I think, then you can deliver something like that.
Right. So we can set up. Yeah. That seems like a valuable system to start thinking about how to build. Good. Hey, what do you think?
Mic check. Okay, cool. It seems to be going through. Let me know.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, cool. The thing that kind of jumped to mind there is pen testing, right? In a situation where you're pen testing, success is not just penetration, I suppose, but also like the even more. I don't know. One could argue either way. Not being able to, have a system penetrated is a successful outcome, and with that you're able to have attempts at trying to breach the wall, so to speak. So I think that could possibly be a good reference, kind of, because going back to what you said before about was it auditor training. I think that's somewhat in line, because it's not just auditing that the initial intention is being executed, it's also the ability to do the checking of different scenarios or different situations, which you kind of have to put on your security researcher or security minded hat on to be able to think of the possible ways that things could go awry.
I really like how that's coming together. All right, so I would like to understand better how Code Wars works and this concept of pen testing. Yuli, when you can you visualize, I guess question for Yuli and anybody else, if we imagine creating those tests, we can, do we seek first to then embed that in a front end so it's a unified experience, or are there other ways to deliver that? I'm just trying to start thinking about this for the first time. Dan, what do you think?
Okay. Oh, hang on. I've got a heck of an echo. Let me kill something. Right. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, good. All right. I was connected on my phone and on my computer because my computer wouldn't connect to start with. Have you looked at, you're talking about doing automated testing. Have you looked at the Haskell.mooc.fi Haskell course? In that, you can download the source, the Haskell code, or part of the code, and you have to rewrite some of the functions to get them to do what they're supposed to do. Not quite the way Sean's talking. You can then download the test programs, which will actually test what you've done to make sure that it's giving the desired results. You can then upload your code to their server and run the tests on their server, and they will then award you points for getting it right. Don't know if that's completely irrelevant or if...
Oh, very much so. Okay, so it's that last bit. We want to learn how that last bit works. Is that the IOG sponsored Haskell MOOC, or is that a different? Do you have a link to that?
No. Yeah. Hang on, just putting it in the chat.
Yeah, let's figure out how that works. Because we're getting better, thanks to people like Adrian and Alex working so hard on this, at just having testing environments for everything we do. And so I think that's what Alex is moving towards and where he'll take us today. But yeah, okay, good. So a little bit of research to do there. Thanks for this MOOC link. We'll look at that. But there's room for creativity here, and I think it's sufficient to have this on all of our radars. That, okay, first of all, anybody who's been working on planning the new course is already thinking about learning targets and thinking about mastery of those learning targets. We have the concept that sometimes that mastery data will be on chain, but certainly not always. And then we have these different avenues for putting puzzles in front of people, whether it's directly in the Haskell environment and using those embedded testing tools, building a transaction or compiling a script, or eventually building some interface for that. These are worthwhile threads to follow. And I feel like that's enough of a roadmap to act on. So I want to kind of organize some thoughts on this, and look at some of the suggested resources today. Does does anybody have questions that would help you if you're thinking about like action steps and trying to figure out what yours would be? Does anybody have any questions about things to maybe try? That's right. Cool. Cool. I'm going to write up some notes as I understand them after this session, and then just share with anybody else to chime in on. Oh, excellent. Thanks, Roberto. Yeah. So this feels like a good start. Sean, it's officially on the radar. And I'm just really excited, and I'm going to keep moving towards some, let's figure out what the first few ideas are that we can then show people, so people can start being creative into these patterns that we're starting now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I guess it's been quite a thought-provoking discussion for sure. And yeah, glad to hear, guys, like it's on, like we can see it on the horizon. And Alex, I would love to somehow like together implement the ace king queen game in a way that maybe builds upon the first proof of concept and adds more things. And also regarding this this concept of how do you prove that like a validator logic is working exactly as it is supposed to. Yeah, that's kind of yeah, that's kind of an interesting question, because you would have to have access to its source code. But one of the ideas that comes to mind is that we could basically, anytime someone says, oh, I have solved it, we could have these incentive structures that encourage all the other learners to go look at this new person's solution and try to crack it, basically. So it's like,
nice.
And we have like something like probabilistic security, where like, okay, 100 people tried to look at the code and crack it and couldn't come up with anything. So it's like, anytime someone says, oh, I'm king of the hill, everyone else is kind of trying to get them off the top. So it's like they're trying to like test their solution and make sure it's correct, and then they can propose their own solution beyond that. So it's like, yeah, that might be an interesting incentive structure to explore.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. I mean, and what you're describing, that I could just speak for myself here. That's the dev community I want to be a part of, right? Everybody is always bug bountying each other, right? Like that's really cool. And it's critical in this space. Good, really good. Okay, so when you talk about ace king queen game, of course you're talking about a slightly broken version of ace king queen, right?
Yeah, where basically the dealer would have a much higher probability of winning initially. But Alex, if you have any modifications to that, I'm completely open to that. But like broken in some key way where the business logic isn't working exactly as you expect. Yeah.
And we could make 5 or 6 different slightly broken versions, right? That are all buggy in their own ways as we start to implement this.
Exactly.
Fabulous. That's really exciting, man.
A little bit difficulty with this game is that I tried to implement it before and I failed, and it's not as simple as it looks. So maybe we can first have a working version and then the broken version, because we will have a lot of broken versions first.
Hey, good times ahead. Okay, but this is starting here, and it's such a good time, I think, now to transition, Alex, because you're helping us get towards what we all need to understand, maybe in order to robustly implement this. So thanks everybody for this first part of the conversation. Like I said, I'll write up some notes as I understand them and what I want to do next, but I'm sure they won't be complete. So if you see something missing or you're taking it a different direction, I'll just drop that in Discord and be sure to respond. Good. Oh, and A's got our branding. Yes, we're building a Plutus-based version of Capture the Flag meets Game of Thrones. Love it. Very good. So Alex, get us all started in actually delivering on some of these big ideas. What's been going on?
You maybe can you share the bless me with the opportunity to share my screen. I want to check.
Oh,
if you
I
can
haven't done
see
that yet. My
shell.
bad. You're good now.
Okay, awesome. Cannot share. Oh, that's a bummer.
What's going on?
We should test these things before.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's in the Discord.
You wrote.
Yeah, wait. But it's not a really big deal, I think.
I'm looking. Is there something I can?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
what we can do, we can actually go first. We can go here. In the chat, there is a.
Okay.
And
here, I'll share my screen up here.
Yeah, man. And maybe you can pull this repo and build it for, if I cannot, it's very small. It's not big.
Okay. Yep. I'll start on that now too.
Okay. And meanwhile, is there a screen?
I'm just going to put it up on the screen here while
awesome.
I pull it over here. And once I get it locally, that'll take me just a moment.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. What should I start with? What I want to start with is, like, if you look on the screen, you will see a red cross in the upper section where it's like 4 days ago. Yeah. And actually, coming back to what Dan said, it's like, that's the thing, you know, with the, you get the same, like if you go navigate to pull request, right? Yeah, okay, anyway. So if
sorry, I'm almost there.
To see this, yeah, just go to pull request and you see something that makes my heart really warm. Not here, just for the pull request for the checks, or just yeah.
Oh, you put it in the chat.
Yeah, no, in the checks tab. Yeah, and you see like checks passing, and that's the green and the red thing, you know. But that's very interesting thing with this test. If you look at this test and navigate to the code and compare the code in the test which is passing, or actually I think it's better to look at the code which is not passing, because why it's not passing is because I didn't put the data for this program on in the code, in the repository. It's here local. And I will just then put links, put it on Discord, and you can share it via Discord, okay? So first we can...
all right, I've got this thing locally, and I don't even need Nix to run this one.
Yeah, you don't need. Just run a Cabal test.
Cabal test. Here, I'm going to try it blind. Even it might show that I'm doing something wrong. Let's find out.
Let's see. Awesome.
I'm going to switch to over here. Just a sec.
No problem.
All right. So I should be able to, from the root folder, run Cabal test, or from the source folder?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So as this is building, can you give us like a 2-minute roadmap of the path you followed over the last like 6 weeks on this?
Oh, thanks a lot for So yeah, when I first, this was the repository which first, like, I thought about, I got first idea how to implement testing, because what actually this is, and if you go on the link in the README, it's the natural language description of this task. It's from Advent of Code. I invited by Matthias, and I actually thought about this while reading some high level on what testing is, and it was said that testing is verifying program output against a known value. And then when okay, we have failures. Wow. Oh yeah, data doesn't exist. And that's very nice that it does this, because you can know that there is a file which is missing. Yeah.
One. Good.
Yeah.
That's a legible error. I like that.
Yeah, and well, I actually, if we want to make this run, I can actually probably do the following. I can it's a text file.
Mhm.
So
It's looking for just a text file called data1 with no extension in my.
Yeah. And one thing is very interesting. What I want actually to do with the test is actually, I think it will help me formulate a property for this program. Is that this program has to do some stuff on this file, and if you can navigate the code, it's actually quite difficult to read, because I don't know. But anyway, so
sorry, my computer just crashed here, and I got to figure out why. I'm sorry.
I'm doing better and better every day. I can crash your computer remotely. Yeah?
Son of a gun.
Let's see. So if you can.
No, I'm like dead, frozen. Sorry.
Okay. Anyway,
right.
So what I did was, well, there is a text file. Its contents in the chat. And what it needs to do, like these groups of numbers, you have to group them, and then you have to find the biggest number.
Oh,
right?
good. Okay.
Yeah, and then you input it in the form. Yeah. Oh, so you're frozen and you cannot navigate to the code, yeah?
Yeah, that's correct. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So what I was talking about? Yeah, and then I thought, I got a verified output. Yeah, I found the value using Cabal run, and now I know that this value is correct. And now to write a test, I can compare this value to what my function does, and finally I understood what is a unit test. Yeah, but if we look at the test code and the main.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just pull it back up here in the browser, because that's a key point you just said, and I'm really interested in this for purposes of the course too. You said you finally understood what a unit test was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this comes back to the question, what is actually a unit?
Right. Right. Can you go through that one more time again?
From which one?
For what got you there?
Okay, so open the code and look at the source. Yeah. So what it does, yeah, it finds a needle in the hay. I need one number and this one liner, yeah, and it returns this. The function returns this number. Yeah.
Okay.
And now if you go to the test code. Yeah. So here it does the same with the testing framework, which is called HSpec. I don't remember why I used it, because probably it was the most accessible. So in the line 20, just reads the file, yeah, and then he performs the task, which is task 1 from the first challenge and compares it to the value that I compared to. So like the Advent of Code website told me this value is right. It has to be so. So now if you can click on main, yeah, and
So
switch.
No, so you tried Tasty, but you liked HSpec more in the end?
This code was written about around New Year, and it was just like I just slapped whatever I had. I would use Tasty if I was going, because later I learned that it's kind of, it seems to be popular and it seems to have good docs, and wherever I find tutorials and documentation, and yeah, so Tasty seems to be. Also Hedgehog is a nice, some people recommend it, and I looked at the documentation, but ultimately need to just compare. So if you switch the branch from main to property, and here you see, yeah. So, and now look, let's look at the source for the property test at the same time as the source for the, so if you can have two tabs.
Oh, yeah. Give me a sec.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay, you can see those side by side now?
Yeah. So, yeah, just on the
Here.
left, we don't have the right thing.
Right.
We need
Test.
src dot test and main.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the right, we can see, actually, at this point, it would be awesome to have, like, I know that, and I would love to actually ponder this together with you today. So that, like, if you can recreate this data1 file in the folder from the chat, we could do this a little bit later. Yeah. So, and the idea is this data file, it contains only numbers, but the function will fail if we replace number with a letter. Somewhere in the middle, there will be conversion. And I mean, like, it's interesting for me, like, what, how we formulate property around this, because that's the essence of what a property is. It seems to be, you know, there's a generalized kind of statement which can be either true or false, and it can encapsulates what the code does. Right. So on the left side, on the right side, you can see I just randomly popped my reverse function, yeah, and it's every time it's somehow example for the property tests and what properties are, because like a property of a reverse function is if you apply it twice, you will get the same list. And on the left, you can see I first did it in a crude way. Yeah, so line 26 and 27.
Right.
Exactly in this way, I apply my reverse and I just take one list. And that's one test. Right. But the next test is, yeah, you have to define it as a property on line 17, 18. You can see like prop rev up. And exactly the same property I defined in the, and actually, yeah, actually, if you can open this repo again in the
well, can we pause right here for a second? Yeah. So, okay. Okay. You know, you mentioned it a moment ago, and we were talking about it earlier in the conversation about Plutus puzzles. All we can really talk about here are like the known unknowns, right? The things we're aware need to work. In other words, the properties that we can define that need to be written. But it remains a problem that we still have to be able to write comprehensive lists of what we expect to work in the first place, right?
Exactly.
This doesn't protect us from those fraction of a percentage cases that Sean is talking about, where something that we just didn't even imagine to test for is the vulnerability itself, right? We have to be really clear about that part.
But that I just want to bring another angle at this because it was just a revelation for me today, I think.
Yeah.
When we are doing this and writing tests, and what you describe has many names, but the core of is like we are not writing actually tests for the sake of tests. We are seeking like vulnerabilities in our applications using tests, and that is a kind of you need a method for this.
That's right. Well said.
Yeah, and for the method, actually, I just want to come back to yeah. Well, anyway, anyone interested in this can just find all the materials in Discord in the project folder where I work at Journey. Yeah. So there are, well, if you reach out, I can, like, I have tons of materials on this, which I don't have time to read all. But the table of contents is very interesting for, that's plenty of deep topics, and including the questions that you was just, so for example, how to like conceptualize software in a way that you can kind of capture its essence and think about which are the valid properties and how to write tests to minimize the number of tests and to kind of maximize probability that you found well all bugs or like
Well, I can see a connection here between what we were talking about a moment ago of everybody auditing each other's code is kind of a way to share the process of figuring out what that agreed upon set of properties should be and making sure it's comprehensive. And once it's agreed upon what we need to be checking for, we can write these tests and we can have them ready to go. So I want to keep thinking about those two things happening at the same time. Maybe having each other to lean on is the answer to the unknown unknowns part, and helps us build up these kind of robust suites.
Yeah, I think the just overall in the process communication between like I cannot know really Plutus and Plutus apps deeply if I concentrate on this, because that takes a lot of time and mental energy. And the same goes for you with the testing. It's like it's too deep to know by one person, and we have to, I think, this has to be done in a group and to look at the GPT together and see and think about what actually we can. I want to work on this on my own for the moment, because there's some awesome material that I found and I'm reading and studying.
Good.
But yeah, at some point be necessary to just look at the same, and write these tests.
I think we're moving towards that point. And what's nice is that, you know, I'm focused on the first half of the PPBL course right now, but as those parts get written, I'll be moving towards helping out on 300 wherever I can. And I think that's going to give us a really nice chance to apply what you're learning here to GPTE. I also see A's hand is up.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Interesting talk here. Two questions. Well, one quick one. What is AOC, Alex?
What? AOC. Where?
The
Advent of Code, my friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it meant something else.
It was a repository for Advent of Code originally.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, the other one is given that the other sort of exactly, yeah, also that Roberto, that's what came to mind. Quick check, Alex, what are your thoughts? Criticisms I've heard of it is that basically it does too little. Like they highlight the quick part of it, and they say that it's not too thorough. But yeah, I'm just curious what your thoughts on that are.
But I didn't get what you mean. Can you kind of
Quick
explain
check.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it? Because it's a was it property based
Yeah.
library in
Yeah.
terms of testing out stuff. Is it something that you've looked into? What's your opinion of it? Would you suggest that other people look into using it?
Quick check. Well, I just will quote the because it's nice to have the code and the high-level description at the same time. And it's just from the paper that I'm reading. Historically, definition of property-based testing was the thing that QuickCheck does. So QuickCheck is the first library introduced property-based testing, and from this library it went to other languages as well. So I think it's valuable in itself. However, maybe newer libraries have better APIs, and like better documentation or whatever. But still, QuickCheck is used a lot by IOG teams, and it's for sure, I think, worth studying. And property testing as a skill set, it's valuable not only in Cardano, because it's an efficient testing technique, among others. And as just I read before, it's not exactly clear science at the moment. And the article that I'm reading is pretty fresh. It's like from 2020, yeah? And claims that there is no really comprehensive material on this. So I think it's a valuable skill set as a property-based testing in itself, and other like mutation testing and modern testing techniques. And
Cool.
yeah, QuickCheck I think is worth studying for sure. I will concentrate on QuickCheck for the moment, for the time being.
Cool. My last quick one here is we've spoken about different test cases and the need to gradually build up sort of I suppose a repository of different ones, and maybe like I don't know, trying to like mix different ones to produce even more kind of thing. I'm curious, have you looked into the use of AI or just machine learning in general as applied to testing? Because I feel like that kind of seems like a relatively low-hanging fruit that I'm sure, or I would assume that some people would have tried to venture down that road.
In the realm of AI, as far as I'm aware, there is a somewhat distinction between what's called connectionist paradigm, and that's neural networks and machine learning mostly. And there is different approach, which is like symbol-based, yeah. And if we're talking about symbolic AI, and the idea is that it's very close, I think, in somewhat to what happens in functional programming overall, because the idea of a category and the function is a very universal and self-referential. So like it creates a closed loop, which resembles human language in a lot of ways, right? But this is the hard way in this, and there is no given that one or the other of, at the moment, connectionist approach seems to be the most popular, and but it has a lot of should I say, like, strings attached. There is a lot of computation power needed and not very efficient, and often when AI is trained on like some training data, on real data. It's for sure there is research. I'm pretty sure I read about it like 2-3 years ago on using neurosymbolic architectures for code analysis. And seems to be like GitHub Pilot and things like that. For sure, these guys, they adapted this for software security. But it seems that like in secure development, we should come from the opposite approach. We should minimize the data by like putting constraints on the system and representing the software that we work with in a formal way. So it's like each part of the software could be expressed as a category which has a finite number of elements, and then we can kind of maybe deal with this beast, you know. But using AI and a brute force approach, I would not actually do this myself.
Cool. Thanks. That kind of the self-referential thing is interesting. It there's this dude who I've recently been getting into, Douglas Hofstadter. He has some really interesting things to do with
exactly. He describes this interesting MYI game, like this MIU game, and well, but category theory is kind of, Hofstadter is like a philosopher, you know. He's very Did you like James? Which chapter did you read? Until when?
No, I've just been basically like trying to figure out which one of his works I should start with, basically. It's still early in my exploration. But yeah, I don't want to take up too much time. Thank you for entertaining my
Thank you for your questions. I love talking about AI. It's like one of my favorite topics ever.
Awesome. More to come then.
I think in the topic of categories, maybe AI can be helpful just from the perspective of helping us notice when categories are similar, right? Like it's possible to go down multiple pathways that start out different and end up with, you know, similar components. We recognize how similar so many Plutus validators are, for example. And so you could be several iterations into a project when, you know, a project Alex is working on and a project I'm working on happens to then create categories that seemed like they were unrelated at first, but are now have some things in common, which allows us to then recognize some properties that might be valuable at that stage in the game. And so just to have the help of machines to help us, you know, notice when there are those similarities, I think is pretty interesting. And Yuli asks Alex in the chat, when is quick check used? Unit testing or end-to-end testing?
Quick check is a library for property testing. So it's a specific thing in its own, as far as I understand. Because unit test is like, you have a unit, you write your unit test, you implement your unit, and then when the test passes, you know your unit is correct, or at least that it works. And then property testing is kind of about making sure that your unit is correct and making sure that if we talk about smart contracts, there's like no ways to steal the money, basically. So it's used in the specific cases. It generates test cases. If James, actually, we were running before and it didn't run because we used the wrong branch. The main is old, and
I could have just right. Is that text file in a different branch?
Yeah, no, it's not there, but you see in this branch the code is commented out.
Right on. Yeah,
if you could show this, and that actually will show
let
the different.
Let me see if I can get away without crashing this time.
But it's simple Haskell. It should work.
Yeah. No, it was my, yeah, I'm not going to talk about it.
Don't worry. You see,
Too
you
much
see,
open all the time these days. There's always too many
So I need to
processes.
dig around
I
pixels.
found so many ways to crash this computer by
But anyway, can you share just the screenshot that I posted earlier? It will display the same thing that you will see if you run the test.
I'm joining up again on this crashed machine. And let's just run it once just to show a successful test. I think we've got this.
Okay.
Oh. No, I'm not gonna be able to get in right now. Sorry. So
just-
yeah,
No,
that
just
screenshot.
you don't have Discord here, yeah?
It's in Discord.
Yeah, it's in the
Yeah.
journey. The one that you summed up earlier.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yep, this one right here. Let's just look at that together. Yeah, that's what success looks like. Good.
Yeah, so you see, like, it was run on my machine, so that the file is present. Yeah, so you see, like, the first function wasn't commented out, and I run it. And then, like, the function at the line, like, the first, like, the brute force, my reverse, it just reverses the function and checks it against one. And you see, the third one is quick check, it does 100 tests. Yeah,
Right.
so, and the thing is, that's the tricky thing. You have to formulate the property so that hopefully as we start finding mistakes and errors, start to understand it better. Because for now, it tells me like that it helps you find bugs and constrain the error space so that you can find what like the edge cases and what is actually breaking the code.
Right.
But for now, it's not clear because all the tests that I did were successful because I knew in front like how to write the program for them.
Right. And so when it does those 100 tests, it's covering cases like when there is a 0 in the list and when there are some negative integers in the list, for example, right?
Well, it doesn't say. It has, yeah, I think you need to dig around implementation to see that. Or maybe some flags for the end docs, probably it's in the documentation. And that comes back to like how do you properly formulate properties? How do you specify properties for your code? Because if you specify them in the right way, this checks will run and you have a good probability of finding bugs.
Can you add that as a learning target to the list if it's not already? I can properly formulate properties or effectively. We can play with the words.
Yeah.
Specify. I can specify properties.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I will. Don't worry. I will not forget to because it's on the plan because that's an important milestone, and I am able to specify property for a smart contract endpoint. Yeah. Probably is the right name for this process. I don't know if anyone has any comments on that.
Well, that's the critical end goal, right? I mean, it's one thing. Like I've played with quick check in a contrived environment, right? Like the textbook examples, this is how this works. That's one thing. But to apply it to a validator, that's the part that still feels like it's a lot to take on.
Yeah, I was looking today at this article, how to specify it, which is about this. And they have 5 approaches. One of them is called, how it's called, I already forgot because I wrote it down. Right.
But a lot of it's also built in, right? There is a lot of this also built into Plutus. And so this is also an argument for really digging into the Plutus development environment, right? Because a lot of this functionality is there. It can be frustratingly hard to find because a lot of it still lacks documentation for the moment, but but that's the opportunity. Let's make sure that we are finding and understanding how to use the tools that are there so far.
So yeah, there's this repo in Plutus apps which is called use cases, Plutus use cases. It has
Right.
contracts with testing defined. So I can look there and see. Yeah, okay.
Does it matter which
Because
checkout?
well, just look at this now and the branches. Yeah, so we have quite a few actually here.
Right.
Yeah, and for each of them, they're supposed to be in the test folder, like test with property tests.
Here we go. Yeah. So quick check, tasty, and tasty
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah, one of the reasons to study quick check because Plutus apps use it a lot.
So we build our traces. And here's the quick check down here. Quick check model. So we have to configure it so that
Yeah, so it's
quick
model-based
check
property
reads
testing,
this.
it's contract
Yeah.
model. And yeah, here are properties.
Right on. Assert. Yeah. And right, and just this highlights that and Sean already said this, it's one thing to kind of do the fun part of building out a proof of concept that works 98% of the time, but to make an actual robust and reliable application that's guaranteed to work, this is what it takes, right? This is
Yeah, and
or
look at
something
it,
like it, right? Some kind of, I mean, we want to formally verify that the thing works all the time.
I think the test code is larger than the smart contract code.
Always. Yep, that's exactly right. Yep. And it's really not sexy, right? Until because you don't it's easy to think you don't need it at first. Right?
Yeah, well.
But yeah, when it works, it feels really good.
So yeah, I think we should steal the properties from escrow that they have.
At least use it, yeah, use it as a guide.
Yeah, and then we can see which kind of where we go with the properties for treasury in escrow.
Right.
Oh, it's much smaller, huh?
It's a simple escrow. There's only so many things. And that's the thing, right? Like the fewer things you're validating against in the first place, the easier it's going to be to check. Right. And that's one thing I'm trying to understand is look, let's imagine a really simple validator like the faucet that people learn when they start the course. The validator simply says, if you hold a token with this policy ID, you should be able to grab some tokens from this faucet. Right?
Mm-hmm.
How much do we really have to check? Right? Like the question is it possible to validate without the particular token? Is there more to it than that?
Yeah, that's what do you think will happen if I run this application that I was showing before, and in the data file, I substitute one number with one letter. Anyone has any ideas?
Right. Right. Very good question. What's the answer? Come on.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay. Right. That's the question, right? Like, same idea. Okay, fine. This, I can write a Plutus validator that says only validate if this policy ID is present. But right, is there a way to pass something other than a currency symbol and get it to validate? I mean, that would be a disaster if that was possible.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I mean, we want to, this to me is what's remarkable about what Plutus accomplishes, is it makes, if you can protect in all the ways necessary who gets a token in the first place, once you have that part down, you can count on a validator to confirm that that token is there.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like time. If I set a time constraint on a contract, it's either met or it's not.
I'm gonna post in the chat because it's really nice in Discord.
Where'd you put it? Sorry.
In the Discord, in the like folder where I work.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
So test fails, and it says, well, some technical information about the test and where it failed.
Yeah. No parse, right? So it couldn't. You gave it something that it couldn't read.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And now, for example, yeah, well, I don't know. I'm kind of looking at this. Yeah, but the first chapter of this article implements actually this exactly property. I just stole it shamelessly. And then they have example binary search tree. They have example, writing properties. Yeah, but this is long read. Oh, so much reading.
It's a different kind of work, right? It's one thing to sit down and just start throwing ideas on a page. And this goes for both, I think like the two main things we cover in the course are starting to play around with Plutus validators and starting to play around with front ends, right? Both of those allow you to get in, get your hands dirty. But that's a long way off from building a fully assured application that does what we want all the time. And it's definitely a different kind of effort required to make sure that that's working.
So it's an interesting thing that also I'm thinking about with this. There is an approach which suggests that developing any feature, we should start with a test. So first we should but that has it's on one side it sounds logical, but on the other side, I seem to be able to kind of build the pieces that I'm building as I go with them often. And this approach implies that you understand what you're doing from the very beginning. So you kind of put a test on, it fails, and then you make it pass.
Right.
That's interesting. Like if, what are trade-offs? And yeah, because for mutation testing, Romain said very nicely that, yeah, you can test for every symbol in your code, but then it takes a long time. And actually, that's like the same thing is with the trade-offs. How much time you invest and effort into this process, and then what we're actually getting in the end. What's the value? And,
Yeah.
And
Good. Okay, so let's tie these two threads together as we
I see
start to
Dan
wrap
has a
up.
hand.
Oh, great. I didn't see that. Hey, Dan.
Hey, it was really a quick follow-up on what I was saying earlier about the Askelmooch FI. They use Quick Check in their tests. All their test programs are on their Git repo. So if anyone wants to have a look at them and find out how they do it, there's another angle to look at.
Yeah, thanks.
Excellent. Thanks. Yeah, I'll pull the chat from today and share that along with some notes. So I have a couple of things I'm excited to look at following up from this, but as a thread, Alex, are you thinking that it's worth it to show this much testing in the course as a way to move people towards more formal verification of Plutus code?
Well, I would love to be able to show how to actually do a smart contract test, or like, but actually, yeah, at the testing, and that's kind of has to be in the context of what it's doing, like in a bigger picture. So I'm not sure be able to do this by the deadline. Minimally, we have unit testing, yeah, and that's actually quite a bit of to talk about if we want to, because there's so many approaches, and somebody uses somebody uses shell for testing, somebody uses something else. Yeah, you can have testing with an X in remote server, and why you shouldn't do it and why you should do it. So there's a lot of things to learn that. I would love to move towards Plutus specific testing. And if I can add something to this, it'd be awesome.
Cool. And to be clear, no pressure, right? Like here's the thing. We're all, I have a million things I would love to understand enough to include in the course, but whatever's not at that state this year, it'll go next year, we'll just.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm looking at what's coming up, and what's IOG sends our way from developer experience group and the CIP repository. Well, it's like, yeah, they have. We'll be able to do something with the with the new CIP standard to have some tutorials on that. Yeah, be also good thing to do.
Good. Anybody else have next steps you're thinking about or questions that you'd like to throw on everybody else's radar? Mix, hey.
Hey, I just wanted to point out that since the next iteration of Plutus Pioneer program is starting 5 days later from now, and also I heard the Laris about 8 weeks, which is about testing again, will introduce a new kind of testing, like working with ACTA or some kind of DAP testing environment, new stuff that's coming from IOG. So maybe, 8 weeks from now, 2 months later, we will have some new material to add to or courses and or iteration too. So I just wanted to point out
Yeah.
this stuff is
Yeah.
coming too.
It starts next week. That's great. And who's thinking about working through that together? I'd love to just jump in and make sure I'm understanding what's new.
Yeah, I already registered. I mean, I really recommend everyone register too.
Yeah, good. Good. Sean.
Hi, I just wanted to ask Alex about the earlier discussion that like what was the issue or the problem he encountered when trying to implement ace king queen, because yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's rather, there are a few ways this game can go, and then it has to be represented in some way. And I sent you in the beginning 2 diagrams which show how I think the program should, like the flow of logic should go. But I looked at these diagrams later and I saw inconsistencies. I have to look at them again and think about, yeah, the text and natural language description I can share with you. It comes from MIT course on poker, because this game is a simplified poker. Ace represents nuts, king represents like middle cards, and queen represents trash cards. And the game you play is to guess if your opponent is bluffing. What kind of, do you bluff or do you not bluff? And that's a interaction between 2 people, and how to actually, I'm 100% sure we shouldn't put a lot of this on chain. It's a more of a Haskell thing.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of, it's difficult. I saw parallels first and I posted this, but then I looked more closely, and again, I saw that this idea is more closely related to Haskell than to Plutus, because Plutus is about, we could do this as a escrow, for example, with 2 players playing this guessing game, or not guessing game, this ace king queen game. But it's like we can build a gambling service if we want to. So yeah, we could kind of, that could be interesting to implement this game in a low level, or maybe to think about how we could actually make an integrated thing that goes the full development life cycle. So we could say, for example, there's 2 guys that come together and like somewhere, and we will face the challenges that we need to face when developing production software, for example, how to make sure the transactions between the users are secure, how we like do all this, yeah. So,
the gambling example is so good too, because it pushes us to just understand the limits of, like you just said, I'm pretty sure we shouldn't put that on chain, right? Well, I agree with you, and let's make sure that other people have a well-informed chance to decide on that too, right? Oh, why shouldn't it go on chain, right? Like, I think building up those opportunities for people to say, oh, that seems wrong. What's another way to do that? And it also pushes us towards, these further features that are ahead of us.
Yeah, well, I think that it would be expensive to play this game. The rate would be huge.
Well, that's part of the reason. That's right. But that expense is exactly why the concept of Hydra is exciting, right? Not to, we'll have it when we have it, but I think it's worth it to kind of think about that.
Yeah, but still we could kind of think about if we could actually, is it possible to make this implementation just not without going in the code, but just in a high level, can we actually do this in Plutus in a secure way?
Right.
And do we have all the tools and how we combine them so that
Right.
like have to have some
And
randomness?
there's valuable exercises in Haskell either way,
Yeah.
right? And then there's the system design questions about ought this to
Right.
be built? Could this be built? Even if it shouldn't be built, is it safe to kind of make a pre-prod version just to learn some things about it and push people to think better about, you know, real applications that we want to build?
Yeah.
By the way,
Hey.
Alex, if I understood that game correctly, I personally think it is possible to create that. It's not big deal or no issue to creating that logic into the Plutus. Although there will be several smart contract, not one smart contract handling all the cases, several smart contract in the game with and everything there, and it would be secure and deterministic.
That's
Yeah.
well, we don't want deterministic. We want randomness. We want
Well, the
opponents to-
randomness must come from off-chain manner. It's fine.
Okay, yeah.
Even one contract, which I currently thinking about it, I call it Joker contract, can play as a random guy, and then he can come to the game and break everything. And that
Mhm.
contract can bring the like randomness or the factor of chaos into the game. But
Mhm.
that contract is possible to create somewhere, maintain it or somewhere, and bring that to the transaction. When it brings, and now things become somehow unpredicted, but the compilation of that contract, that Joker contract, is unpredicted. We don't know, but when it comes, we know what would happen. So
Yeah.
somehow we can work around it. But I think it is possible to build that.
So there is no way to implement, or there is a way, I don't know, and I'm asking, to implement something that like you hit a smart contract with the endpoint and it returns a random value. There is no way to do this.
If you care about the hash, if you consider hash as a random value, yeah. I mean, I was thinking even using fee as a variable to the smart contract and produce something out of it. Like, for example, because in the script context, we can get the fee, and the fee is not always exact number.
Yeah.
Although someone can predict that number based on the size.
Mix, you always hit us with these amazing big ideas right as we're running out of time.
Sorry.
That concept right there sounds absolutely
yeah,
worthy
but
of discussion.
if you guys want to go with the random value that might you can introduce it to your contract. Take a look to the fee, and in a script context you can take it and use it. Maybe
what about using the transaction hash?
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking that using the transaction hash of the UTXO that is consuming, and combining that with the fee number, the fee, and produce a hash. This hash is quite different than the hash of the output UTXO, and that is random, and it is
I have a hard stop in less than a minute, and I love that. I love this about live coding so much. We get to these launching points for another hour of conversation. This is beautiful, and let's explore that together. I'm excited.
Yeah, actually Friday, Alex, if you want, we can explore this stuff too.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. A's had his hand up. You want to take us home today?
Yeah, sure. I'll be respectful of time and make it quick. Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about 3 points: random number generation, encryption, and puzzles. Yeah, I think it's interesting to look into random number generation. And I'm curious why folks don't seem to be leveraging cryptography in general. I think stuff like encrypting metadata would be interesting. And the last point, puzzles, within the Gimbal Discord, I shared 2 links, one of a game that utilizes immutability, or a talk really, of a guy who talks about the use of functional programming and immutability as it applies to games. I thought it's a good reference for the puzzle. So have a look at that within the channel. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for the session. It was super interesting and illuminating or insightful.
Thanks for those follow-up resources. Yeah, I feel excited to do some exploring. Tomorrow we'll come down from these big ideas and look a little more closely at the front-end template for the PPBL course and the tools we want to build into that. And if you have any other topics you want to bring to these sessions, the answer is always yes, please. Okay, so if anybody's been working on something, you want a chance to share it, that's what this space is for. Thanks for spending time here today. Hope to see you soon, later or tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.